Justin, fantastic to get you on Real Vision.
Pleasure to be here.
Listen, firstly, I'd love to just hear about your career, because I love hearing about people's careers. You know, what gave you the crazy idea of becoming an artist and what you do. And then we'll talk about your crypto journey and what you're doing now. But I'd love to hear about your career.
Yeah, no, it's a fun story. I've made music all my life. I play piano, drums and guitar, even sing sometimes, since I was a kid. And in college, I was just kind of fascinated by the rise of electronic music, mainly because one of my roommates was Swedish. And of course, the electronic music scene was exploding in Sweden. I actually went to Stockholm for one summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college. And that's when I knew I really wanted to be a DJ. But it was kind of prior to the explosion, like the real explosion of dance music in the United States. It was still very much Europe focused. And that was when I just started taking all my time away from finance classes. I was studying, derivatives and structured products at Washington St. Louis. And in all my free time, I was learning how to make dance music on my computer. And that's kind of where the story all began. I uploaded some things to YouTube and to social media that went viral, and started playing, performing at other colleges, making, $1,000 to $3,000 a weekend. And eventually, that rate kept going up, and my schoolwork couldn't keep up. And I decided to actually drop out of school my junior year, to the dismay of my parents, but they weren't paying for college. So they agreed to let me do it. And I pursued my music career full time at that point. But, always like to mention that my interest in the financial world and in fintech kind of always existed, behind the scenes, even through my decade long DJ career.
So when did you make the shift full time into music? What year was that?
So it would have been like between my sophomore and junior year of college. Junior year is when I started touring. And like I would be basically traveling every single weekend to another university to play a show. And so it was just impossible to keep my grades up at that point. And I had a pretty great GPA prior, and that sank pretty quickly as DJing took over. So junior year is when things got really busy, and then I ended up leaving right before the end of my second semester of junior year.
I never forget, I was living in Spain in the early 2000s, from like 2005 to 2014. And it was the beautiful life. We were just, I could look on the horizon and see Ibiza. And I remember thinking, God, it's a fantastic life. Everyone's having great fun. Where's the music scene? And I hadn't really kind of put two and two together. I was going out to the club every weekend, and it was facing me in Ibiza. And it was massive. I mean, My God, that was a lot of fun. That whole period.
That was the time, like 2005 to 2014. Yeah, that was an era. That was an era.
Yeah, I mean, I even managed to get in the DJ booth because a friend of mine was a well-known DJ and producer called ATFC, and I managed to be in the DJ booth at Pacha with Bob Sinclair and a whole bunch of others, David Guetta. So yeah. That was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, classics, man. But that was all the stuff that inspired me to really start. And at the time, dance music just wasn't as big in America. It was kind of viewed as this like sub-drug rave culture as opposed to like being mainstream acceptable. And right around 2010, 2011, David Guetta, Calvin Harris, and Avicii really kind of set this, the new momentum in the United States for dance music.
Yeah. So you've now started the journey, and you've suddenly found yourself popular and you're now in the music scene full on. What brings you to crypto suddenly? Because, this is now you've got another swerve, which I love. The fact you start in derivatives, you end up being a DJ, end up becoming really successful, and then suddenly discover crypto en route. What's that journey all about?
What's funny is like, if I could identify a common thread, between all the things that I do, it's kind of economics and math, where making music is very mathematical and very can be formulaic, especially dance music. So I've always kind of enjoyed the creative aspects of math and economics. And then of course the more practical ones like fintech. And so during my DJ career, I was playing a spring break event in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta in 2014. I was opening up for Avicii at the time, who was a huge inspiration of mine. And I met the Winklevoss twins.
No way.
Down in Mexico, and became, good friends with them. They invited me to,
because they got into crypto, by the way, meeting somebody at Pacha in Ibiza.
exactly. And I've chatted with him. I forget the guy's name, Aziz or something. I forget the guy's name, but
Right.
yeah, the story is quite interesting because they got into crypto in Ibiza, and I got into crypto in Mexico through meeting them. They were at the time, I think, building Gemini. I don't think Gemini had launched yet. And I was just fascinated with Bitcoin insofar as this idea of, in the United States, we take it for granted, but most developing countries, it's very difficult to open up a bank account. So banking the unbanked was a huge, personal interest in Bitcoin specifically. Frictionless value transfer 24/7 was quite exciting to me. And as somebody who had accumulated some, decent wealth at a young age, 19, 20 years old, I couldn't, it was difficult for me to even get a mortgage, even though I could make, more than the down payment just because I had no credit history. And so dealing with banks was already kind of a sensitive point of friction for me. My dad had to sign on to my first condo because I just didn't have the history, even though I could have paid, in full and, but didn't want to. And so, I've kind of had this bad history with the traditional banking system. Enter Bitcoin, having a background in finance and just being absolutely fascinated by it. And so at the time I just purchased some Bitcoin, left it alone. But from 2014 to 2017, really wasn't involved actively in the space whatsoever. It was more of a ancillary interest. Then, fast forward to January of 2017, my friend Sander, who I was studying finance with at university, we were graduated, of course, at this point, starts telling me about Ethereum. And I think at the time Ethereum was trading $36 or something. I think I remember that was maybe my first Ethereum purchase. And I showed my dad, I was like, look how fast this is. Bitcoin transaction speed slightly slower. With Ethereum, I was like, oh my God, within 7 minutes, at the time it was 7 minutes, you can move this thing around and there are all these tokens. And I just was so enthralled by the ecosystem without having any technical knowledge whatsoever. Then I started getting as technical as possible, diving into smart. I'm not an engineer by any means, but on a surface level, I still have the knowledge to write direct to Etherscan, to, program certain things and whatnot. My little brother is a fantastic developer who's now actually an analyst at A16Z.
Wow.
So, even though I'm not a developer, I have a lot of friends who are and who teach me along the way. I love learning about this stuff. So 2017 was when I was I began to get really excited about the potential of the technology and how it could disrupt the entertainment world, not just music. And I actually decided to throw my own crypto music festival.